Sporting Journal Radio, presented by Onyx.
Well, this time of year, you have so many options of things to do in the outdoors. And what's nice is you can go to one area and do them all, and that's Otter Tail Lakes country. And to tell us more about some of those opportunities, Garett Svir joins us from Slab Seeker Fishing. Garett, how you doing?
Hey, doing good. How are you guys?
So a lot of people will go to Otter Tail County for, deer hunting in the fall, obviously is really good. Waterfowl hunting is good. Muskie fishing, walleye fishing. But maybe, and I don't want to say it's overlooked when you talk about panfish paradise, but you have people travel there for crappies in the fall, it sounds like.
Fall crappie fishing is absolutely fantastic. We'll start to see around the middle of September, those fish tend to kind of push out over those basins, those deeper areas. Anytime you have a hole where you're seeing, 30 to 50 feet of water, you're going to see some suspended crappies in those. And it's a real easy thing to hunt over that deep water with your electronics and kind of get on top of those roaming schools. You can kind of follow them around with your bow mount throughout the day and vertical jig for them. I even know a lot of people that bring their ice fishing gear out and they flop a Vexlar over the side of the boat, let the transducer float there and jig with their ice rods over the side when they get on top of them. It's really a fun time of year to go vertical jig crappies. And, I know a lot of people really want cold water crappies. The fillets are just nice and firm, and it's getting to be that time of year.
I can't believe it. It's here. I'm so excited for fall, Garett. And I know you do a lot of traveling and fishing kind of around the region in the fall, don't you?
Yeah, I really like to go chase migratory fish, in the Great Lakes, big browns, big salmon, big steelhead. And so I love the fall from a recreational standpoint. That's my favorite time of the year. I spent some time at Lake Michigan chasing migratory steelhead, big brown trout. Obviously Lake Superior where I grew up, I'd love to get back up there. I even do, some guiding up there the whole month of October. I'll guide on the Brule River in the fall and then the North Shore rivers in Minnesota in the spring. But I try to get out and do a bunch of fun fishing too. In fact, I just got back from the Brule River, and I was out night fishing browns, migratory Lake Superior brown trout with my nephew, with big mouse flies. It was pretty fun. We didn't do real well, but we had a great time.
So tell me,
we had some fish that were chasing. We just didn't get any hooked. We're out there wading the upper Brule at night in these big pools and throwing a big mouse fly on the surface, and you kind of chug these along, and they can see this water displacement that's coming in like a mouse or a frog on the surface. And I had a big fish erupt in front of me, and the key is when you get a big fish that misses the bait, just to keep it moving. If you stop it, I don't think they really know it's there at all. They're kind of sensing this when they're lateral line because it's so dark they can't see very well either. And I did the right thing. I had this big fish blow up on the surface and, just water everywhere and a big commotion. And I just kept slowly stripping the fly. And he found it and got up to it one more time, missed it again, a whole big eruption and, big splash. And I kept it moving. And at that point, I'm right on my rod tip. So I had no alternative other than to cast again. But that was a 25-inch plus to a mid-30-inch fish, a big fish.
And you're doing this like in the middle of the night or like 10 p.m. when it's pitch black, or what time of night is this?
Mac is far better at it than I am. He goes every night. I'm a daytime guy. I'm a daytime fisherman, but he's really got this down to a science, and they don't like the moon out at all. And so you really kind of plan your trip based on the moonrise. And like when we were out, we had, nice dark night until about midnight. And so we fished from, dark at 9 o'clock until about 12:30. And then that moon got up bright, like daytime. You didn't need your headlamp anymore. And from his experience, those fish just don't bite very well once that moon gets up bright. We also did some daytime brookie fishing when I was up there. And that's a lot of fun. We caught a ton of fish, on dry flies, on streamers, on small MEP spinners and Vibrex spinners. The brookie fishing was fantastic. The big giant browns at night can be tricky, but it's pretty rewarding if you succeed.
Yeah, like that, I spend more time. I don't spend as much time with stream trout, particularly in the summer. I don't fly fish too much. I could see myself getting into it a little bit, but I've been using flies like streamers for big fish, particularly up in Saskatchewan for big pike and even lake trout. And I am completely hooked on it, right? Like it's such an effective way.
Much better than that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I could see it for big browns, when you start talking about 30 plus inch fish, that's a nice fish. And then when you can combine that type of effectiveness with a fly and a topwater bait, gosh, that sounds like a good time, man.
It is pretty fun. And I'm kind of with you. I'm not the biggest fan of like real delicate, fishing tiny midge flies that, and stuff like that for small trout, but something about going out there and we're throwing mice that are, 4 or 5 inches long with the tail. I mean, so you're throwing big flies, trying to make a lot of commotion on the surface when you strip them in. It's pretty exciting. It's pretty much as neat as fly fishing gets, in my opinion.
Yeah, and doing it in the dark like that'd be pretty wild. Well,
yeah, and his kind of program, and it was good for me even because I haven't went and, throwing mice at night it's been maybe 2 years since I've done this at all. And so he got me out there about a half hour before it was pitch black and just had me cast a little bit, which is kind of nice. And you can kind of get dialed in and make sure your loops are tight behind you. So in the dark, you don't have the advantage of looking back to see if you have a tight loop before you go with your forward haul. And so, you can kind of get that dialed in, and so that it's all just muscle memory. Once you're out there, you're just like, all right. And, to get that mouse as far as we're throwing it, we're using double hauls too. So you're pulling on your fly line in the back, like a rubber band, and then letting it go behind you. And then once you get your rod in front of you, you're pulling back on it again and then letting it fly forward. And so to get the distance you need to make what they call double hauls. And, that's something that it's nice to work on for, to have a half hour to get kind of adjusted before it's pitch black.
Yeah, in the daylight, if there's one tree around, I will be in it, let alone trying to do it along a stream in the dark. I'd be a nightmare. I'd be done. I'd be done in 5 minutes. I'd say, no, let me know when you guys are done. I'll be in the truck.
The other thing you can do that kind of helps with this too is we run a short leader. So I was running about 2.5 feet of 15-pound fluorocarbon off of my fly line is all, and then that mouse pattern because, they're not real spooky at night. So you definitely don't want to go out there and use a 7.5 foot or even a 5 foot leader because, what could happen is you're trying to do this from muscle memory in the dark, and you could loop that mouse around your leader when you're forcing it out there. But if you use, something real short and stout, it's a pretty fail-safe operation. The trees behind you do have to kind of be a little observant on. But as far as looping that around, if you can go just real short, and they're not line shy back there at night. In the worst scenarios, when you hook a big fish like that and you break it off, the hits are so aggressive on the surface that they hit it with so much shock that you want to use, we always have jokingly said you want to use as heavy of tippet material as you can fit through the eye of the mouse, honestly. So I was running straight 15-pound fluorocarbon, but you could even go heavier than that, honestly, and it wouldn't hurt you a bit. And they don't really see your fly line coming as dark as it is either. So if you put 2.5 or 2 feet or 3 feet of, a leader on there, that's plenty long, and that's really hard to tangle that up when it's that short.
And what are you using for a rod?
I've got a 10-foot Sage 7-weight that it was beautiful to throw. Both Mac and my cousin were out there, and they both really loved to throw that Sage I had. That's a pretty expensive fly rod, but it's really a beautiful rod to throw. Mac, doesn't have expensive gear at all. He really likes to throw, and he's out there every night catching tons of these big fish. And he just has some, 9 to 9.5 foot Reddington, 7-weights. A 7-weight's really kind of a nice rod back there, or an 8. A lot of the fish you're going to catch are going to be, just your average cookie cutter migratory brown, and the Brule is going to be about 26 inches long. That's about the average size.
That's a nice
and the big one will go 33. So you're pretty undergun with a small stream trout rod, like a 5 or a 6-weight. A 7 or an 8 is really, really ideal. And the other thing is to handle throwing a mouse like that. The line that I ran this past weekend was an indicator nymphing line for throwing strike indicators, a big bobber essentially. And so those turn over a heavy indicator with weight really easily. So they'll also cast a big, heavy, wet mouse fly a long ways. You don't want to use a fly line that's not really meant to throw a big fly, or you're going to struggle to kind of punch those out there that way too. So having a line that'll throw that helps a lot too. And also having a rod. The mice we were fishing were way too big to throw with a stream trout rod as well. You almost need a 7-weight to throw that big of a mouse, especially when they get some water in there. The one mouse I was throwing was made out of deer hair. And those deer hair mice are great until you get them wet. And so with those, we're using a lot of dry fly floating to kind of keep that hair dry. And then also, trying to kind of dry them out in the air with your back casting a little before you throw it so it stays up on the surface. And it seems like lately Max got into a lot more foam mice where he's tying them with foam heads and foam ears. And that foam is nicer than deer hair in the sense that you don't have to worry if it's floating or not. It's always going to float. Where, deer hair is kind of the traditional mouse material, and that deer hair, if it gets wet, and you can feel it, it gets to be like you're casting a wet sock after a while. You're like, I need to really get some floatant on here and dry this fly out a little.
Well, one of these years I'll get over there to the Brule. I had fun with you last time. We were up along the North Shore. I'd like to do that again one of these years. And then, which people can do that. They can join you. You'll take them on a guided trip. Are you doing, you got any more Otter Tail Lakes Country guiding opportunities this year, or are you starting to focus up on the North Shore?
I've always done panfish in Otter Tail County in the summer, and then in the fall and the spring, I do a month of steelhead fishing in the spring and a month in the fall. So, our steelhead calendar gets a little jammed up, but I got Mac helping me now too, taking quite a few trips. So if you're interested in a steelhead trip, we'll definitely get you out in the water.
All right. Well, how do people reach you?
I've got a website. It's slabseekerfishing.com. Otherwise, if you search for Slab Seeker Fishing on Facebook, we've got a great Facebook page. We try to update with what we've been doing. I used to be far better at updating it every day after every trip, but I still make sure I update it once a week so you can kind of see what's biting, what we're doing, if that seems of interest.
Sure. All right, Slab Seeker Fishing, Garett Svir, thanks for the time today on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Hear more at sportingjournalradio.com or wherever you get podcasts.
Did you know there are more than 1,000 lakes in Otter Tail County?
Yep, and I'm gonna fish as many as I can. I'm an outdoorsy otter. Nothing beats a full day of fishing for me. The lakes of Otter Tail County give me plenty of options to lower my boat and snag the perfect catch. Not an outdoorsy otter? No problem. Otter Tail County has something for everyone. You just need to find your inner otter.
To find your inner otter, go to OtterTailLakesCountry.com.